Looking at our world from a theological perspective. This is the Theology Central Podcast, making theology central.
Good morning, everyone. It is Wednesday, May the 12th, 2021. It is currently 11:40 a.m. Central Time, and I'm coming to you live from Victory Baptist Church. I'm here in the sanctuary of Victory Baptist Church, and of course, Victory Baptist Church is located in the middle of nowhere, Texas. Thank you for tuning in. If you're listening to me live, as always, you can feel free to add your thoughts or comments or ask a question. And for those who are not listening live, you can always send me your thoughts or comments by emailing me at newsif@yahoo.com. And it is time once again for a Bible study exercise. Now, I will do this quickly. Bible study exercises are designed where I do some of the teaching, not all of it. I try to get you into the scriptures. The goal is not to have you just sit there as a passive listener, listening to someone tell you what the Bible means, but I try to guide you into actually studying the text for yourself. And then what I hope will happen with every Bible study exercise is the people who participate will then either send me what they discovered, show me their work, engage in conversation and discussion, because it's that engaging and discussion of the scriptures that leads to the encouragement and exhortation and exhorting one another, which is what the church is supposed to do. We're supposed to be encouraging, exhorting one another. But how does that occur? That occurs when we get together, when we talk the scriptures, when we think about the scriptures, when we meditate on the scriptures, because it is the scriptures that ultimately is the very thing that encourages and that exhorts us. It is the scriptures. Anything other than the scriptures, it is just, human beings trying to encourage and exhort one another. It needs to be the word of God that accomplishes that. All right. So the Bible study exercises is really designed for me just trying to get you started. Sometimes I do more, sometimes I do less. It just really, I never really know which direction it's going to go, but I always hope that it is beneficial. So I'm going to continue to do the Bible study exercises because I like to balance it out. Like if we talk about something going on in the news, or we talk about, something controversial, I want to balance it out with turning our attention to the scripture. So I want to present everyone a Bible study exercise for today, Wednesday, May the 12th, 2021. Are you ready? Now, technically, we probably should be doing this Bible study exercise during the evening hours, because many people believe that this psalm is very much, or what we're getting ready to look at, is very much connected to evening time, but that will all make sense as we move forward. All right, so before we get to the text, before we say anything about it, let me ask you a question. Have you ever found yourself at the end of the day? It's the day is over. The sun is gone, the moon is out, the stars are out. It's time for bed. Maybe it's getting late, 11 p.m., 12 p.m., 1 a.m. I don't know what time you go to bed, 6 p.m. Some of you go to bed very early. But you can all imagine, there it is. It's evening time. It's night. It's time for bed. And you realize that you are just too upset, too bothered, too worried, filled with too much anxiety to really get any sleep. You don't know if you can go to sleep because of everything going on. Whatever those circumstances may be, you've all been there at the end of the day. At time, you probably should go to bed, and your mind is racing. You feel this sense of anxiety and worry and just you're just no way. You just say, I can't do it. Forget it. I'm just going to stay up. And you sit there and you just let your mind just races, and you go from this thought to this thought to this thought to this thought to this thought. You think about things that could happen, things that should have happened. What could you have done? Should you have done? Whatever the case may be. Maybe it's guilt. Maybe it's shame. Maybe it's fear. Maybe it's frustration. Maybe it's pain. Maybe it's hurt. Maybe it's depression. Maybe it's discouragement. But you've all been there, where at the end of the night, instead of finding a time where you can lay down and find peace and rest and sleep, you find everything else waiting for you. You've been there. We've all been there. Some believe the text of Scripture that we have before us, it was basically designed for, that kind of a situation. So we're going to look at this, and I'm going to really try to challenge you to dig into it and see what you can find, all right? The text in question is Psalm chapter 4. The book of Psalms, Psalm chapter 4. Let's look at it. Psalm chapter 4. Let's start with verse 1. Psalm chapter 4, verse 1. We're gonna read. There's only 8 verses here. There's only 8 verses, so we can read this. Depending on the type of Bible you have, some Bibles will give you the little kind of like chapter heading, give you some information. Some Bibles do not. I have 2 Bibles here. One of my Bibles that don't give me any of the kind of the note that goes with the psalm, or the heading that goes with the psalm, but the Bible that I have right here in my hand does. So let me explain. So Psalm chapter 4, verse 1, right above verse 1, I have this chapter heading. To the chief musician on Neginoth, or Neginoth, I heard it pronounced a lot of different ways, Neginoth, a psalm of David. Now that's how the King James has it. You may find in other translations, to the chief musician on a stringed instrument or on the string instruments, a psalm of David. Neginoth, depending again on who you pronounce it, that Neginoth is a stringed instrument or refers to stringed instruments. So this was a psalm designed for the chief musician to play it on a stringed instrument or on string instruments. That was to be the musical accompaniment that goes along with this psalm. All right. So it was designed to be sung. It was designed to be a song to be sung. And some would say that this would be the perfect psalm to sing or to hear sung late at night when you're trying to go to sleep. All right, but let's read it and you'll see why. All right, here we go. So to the chief musician on Neginoth, I heard it all kinds of different ways, a psalm of David. I literally listened to like 4 different pronunciations and they all said it differently. All right, so here we go. Hear me when I call, O God of my righteousness. Thou hast enlarged me when I was in distress. Have mercy upon me and hear my prayer. O you sons of men, how long will you turn my glory into shame? How long will you love vanity and seek after leasing? Selah. Now stop right there. Already, I noticed one very interesting thing about the psalm. He begins by speaking to God, and then immediately after he speaks to God, he in a sense turns his thoughts, his words, to the sons of men. Something is going on with people, whoever these people are, and he says, how long will you turn my glory into shame? They're doing something about turning his glory into shame, doing something about destroying his reputation, going after his character, trying to hurt him in some way. How long will you love vanity and seek after leasing? Selah. Now, Selah, stop, go back, think about it, meditate on. And so it's interesting. We got this we got this interesting contrast. He refers to God, but what's on his mind clearly is something that's going on in his life, his circumstance. Verse 3, but now that the Lord has set apart him that is godly for himself, the Lord will hear when I call unto him. Okay, all right. Hey, Lord, he speaks to the Lord. Okay, these sons of men. He's got some issue with these sons of men of what they're doing. But then he goes back to God. But know, I should say. I think I said but now. But know that the Lord hath set apart him that is godly for himself. The Lord will hear when I call unto him. Now, that it's interesting. Verse 3 seems to be, is he still referring to the sons of men? But no. Who needs to know? Does he need to know? Hey, you sons of men, you need to know that the Lord has set apart him that is godly for himself. I've been set apart to God for himself. You need to know this. You may be trying to turn my glory into shame, but you need to know this. All right. I'm sorry I said but now. I'm sorry. Verse 4, stand in awe and sin not. Commune with your own heart upon your bed and be still. Now, here's where the idea of bedtime comes in, right? He's referring to the bed. Now, stand in awe. Now, is he telling himself this? Stand in awe and sin not. commune with your own heart upon your bed and be still, Selah. Is he now referring back to himself? Is verse 3, but know that the Lord has set apart him that is godly for himself. Is he telling himself this? Right? These are just basic observational questions that anyone reading this should have. Verse 5, offer the sacrifice of righteousness and put your trust in the Lord. There be many that say, who will show us any good? Lord, lift thou up the light of thy countenance upon us. Verse 7, thou hast put gladness in my heart more than in the time that their corn and their wine increased. I will both lay me down in peace and sleep, for thou, Lord, only makest me dwell in safety. Now, verse 8 gives the idea that possibly that it's bedtime. It's time for bed. And he says all of these things, and at the end, I will both lay me down in peace and sleep, for the Lord only maketh me dwell in safety. That somehow between verse 1 and verse 7, he's worked through this to some level, and now he's like, okay, I will both lay me down in peace and sleep, for the Lord only maketh me dwell in safety. Now, what do we do with this psalm? How do we understand this? Is there a way to outline this? How should we outline this? What should we do? Well, let me give you a couple of thoughts. All right, first, the title of Psalm 4, I think this is important, seems to indicate that it was incorporated into Israel's public worship at an early date. In other words, by telling this to be played on the stringed instruments, there's a good chance that this was a part of their worship. That is at least the claim by some. So it was a psalm. Here's the psalm. Basically serves as a song that was to be sung possibly in public worship. Clearly, we can say this dogmatically. It was a psalm designed to be sung and accompanied by stringed instruments. That we seem to can be absolutely dogmatic upon. Many assume Davidic authorship, right? And again, this one Bible here has a Psalm of David. If that is accurate, then it would be Davidic authorship. The specific circumstances for its composition revealing the divine complaint against the sons of men. So we know this. It appears to be that the circumstance is something to do with a complaint against the sons of men. All right. And against many who say, who will show us any good? So there's the sons of men and these people who say, who's going to show us anything good? There seems to be something going on that's led him to write this. All right. We other than that, we don't really know any of the other circumstances. We could speculate, but we don't have anything. We have, whoever the sons of men are and these people who are asking, who will show us anything good? That seems to be the best we can derive from the circumstances, but we don't have anything specific. Traditionally, now this not everyone agrees with this. Traditionally, commentators have connected this psalm with Absalom's revolt. Now, if you remember David, his son Absalom, who decided, hey, I'm going to take over. It's time for David to go, and I'm going to take over, and I'm going to lead, and we're going to remove David. Some say that revolt is what's going on here. I don't know. You would think it would be more specific towards a person if it was, but okay. Some would argue that from verse 4, look at Psalm 4, verse 4. Stand in awe and sin not, commune with your own heart upon your bed, right? That, according to one commentary, that this would lead to the conclusion that this was written at the end of the day. Meditate within your own heart on your bed and be still. And then in verse 8, I will both lie down in peace and sleep. So it's been basically understood at this. Psalm 3 is a devotional for the morning hour. And Psalm 4 is basically as a devotional for the evening hour. All right. Now you can draw your own conclusions about that, whether you agree or not agree with some of that. Clearly, the reference to the bed is and the reference to the bed and the reference to laying down and sleeping at least gives you that idea, that feeling, all right? That, hey, this is a time to work through these situations so that you can get some sleep and find some sense of peace and tranquility. Now, here's what I want you to do. First, I want you to see, can you come up with an outline? I have a suggested outline here, right? I have a suggested outline here, but I'm not convinced of it. I don't want to give this to you, but it's 8 verses. So see if you can outline it. See if you can outline the 8 verses. That's always a good exercise. Remember your outline. This is number 1 rule. Do not interpret anything. Your outline is simply you observing what's on the page and you're putting it on the paper in an organized way. Okay, these verses, give it a title that would derive from the text itself if all possible, because you don't want to interpret anything, right? You don't want to interpret anything. You want to try to just get what's on paper, what's on the page on paper. That's all you're trying to do here, okay? Now, a couple of things here to just point out, all right? So there's first thing. I want you to outline it. Couple of interesting things to note. Let's look at verse 1. Hear me when I call, O God of my righteousness. Hear me when I call, O God of my righteousness. What is meant by that phrase, God of my righteousness? What do you think he's referring to there? Now, a lot of people have done different things throughout church history, but I think the idea here, in fact, I'm going to pull up one commentary here. I'm going to pull up Barnes' notes on the Bible, okay? Just because I think they have a pretty good understanding here. O God of my righteousness, that is, O my righteous God. This is a common mode of expression in Hebrew, right? The psalmist here appeals to God as his God, the God whom he trusted, and as a righteous God, a God who would do that which was right and on whom, therefore, he may rely as the one who would protect his own people. The appeal to God as a righteous God implies a conviction in the mind of the psalmist of the justice of his cause and asks God merely to do right in this case. All right. Now, some kind of try to understand, O God of my righteousness, as being like the God who is the source of his righteousness. Like, God, you are the source of my righteousness. But it doesn't, I don't think that that's a correct way. I think in this particular case, he's saying, you are my righteous God. You are my God, and you are righteous. And because you are a righteous God, I'm coming to you for you to engage in, or to work in this situation to do that which is right. To do that which is right. All right, so let's read this again. Hear me when I call, O God of my righteousness, or hear me when I call, O righteous God. Lord, hear me. I'm coming to you. I'm coming to you, Lord, and you are a righteous God. Thou hast enlarged me when I was in distress. Have mercy upon me and hear my prayer. Now, this idea that you have enlarged me when I was in distress, this seems to be, obviously he's referring to something that's happened in the past. When he was pressed or confined in a bad situation and he didn't know how to escape, God, in a sense, basically moved in and had given him room so that he felt free. So now he implores the same mercy again. So basically, it's the idea, okay, Lord, I'm coming to you. Hear me, my righteous God. And Lord, you have enlarged me when I was in distress. When I was in distress, when I felt closed in, I felt boxed in, you, in a sense, opened it up and let me out. You opened up the situation for me. And now he's imploring him, in a sense, to do the same thing or have the same mercy. Have mercy upon me and hear my prayer. All right. So what do we have really going on in verse 1? Well, clearly he seems to be experiencing some kinds of distress, as noted in the very next verse. And whatever he's experiencing, whatever frustration, anxiety, difficulty he's experiencing here, the psalmist, and if it is David, whatever it is, he realizes that at the end of the day, he can sit there and contemplate and worry, but he's going to come to the Lord. He's coming to God and say, God, please hear me. You are a righteous God. You've done this for me in the past. Have mercy upon me and hear my prayer. All right. He is coming to, he in a sense, and you can decide if you agree with this or not agree with this. I think we could do it this way. Again, Bible study exercise. I'm working through this with you. All right. Give me a second. I'm looking at a possible outline here. I don't know if I like that or not. I don't think I'm going to go with that one. All right. I'm looking at a number of outlines, and we're going to leave it there with verse 1. All right. We're going to leave verse 1, and basically what we have in verse 1, because I don't want to give you the outline. I want you to work on the outline yourself, but I just want you to see a couple of things there about verse 1. I guess the main thing I think we can derive in verse 1 is that clearly whatever is going on, he comes to God and he's asking God to hear him. He's asking God basically to do what you've done for me in the past, where you enlarged me when I was in distress. Have mercy upon me and hear my prayer. Basically, Lord, I'm coming to you. Hear me. I'm coming to you because you are righteous. I'm coming to you because of what you've done for me in the past. Lord, please hear me. All right. Now, if we were creating an outline, let me ask you a question. Would you separate verse 1? Or would you group verse 1 with verse 2 and 3? I've got one outline here that groups verses 1 through 3 together. They group verses 1 through 3 together. I don't know if I would do that. I don't know here. All right. I mean, it's basically in verse 1, what do we have here? I mean, we basically have a plea for God to hear him. I mean, that's repeated twice. Hear me, in the first part of verse 1, and hear my prayer, the end of verse 1. So we seem to have a plea here for God to hear him. Verse 2. O ye sons of men, how long will you turn my glory into shame? How long will you love vanity and seek after leasing Selah? Now, what do we have here in 2? Verse 1, we seem to have a plea for God to hear. Verse 2, we seem to have his complaint. Why does he need God to hear him? Why does he need God to hear him? He needs God to hear him because of the sons of men. When you get to the end of the day, sometimes the thing that's keeping you up at night, sometimes the thing that's causing you so much stress and so much frustration is because of what people are saying and doing to you, about you. It can bother you greatly. Sometimes what keeps you up late at night, in fact, I will say that if you think about all the problems you experience in life, almost all the problems you experience in life deal with other people. I think there's just truth to that. You think so many of the issues you deal with that causes you stress, that causes you anxiety, causes you worry, it causes you pain, they're almost always directly connected to other people. Other people are a source of so many issues that we deal with, right? And how do you deal with that? How do you deal with that? Well, first of all, his plea is for God to hear him. And then he's going to voice the complaint. And the complaint, it's interesting. He really, there's 3 parts in a sense to the complaint. You can tell me if you disagree. Number 1, he's complaining about the sons of men because they're turning his glory into shame. They're turning his glory into shame. What do you think that means? What do you think that means? I want you to work on that. They're turning his glory into shame. It seems to be the idea that, okay, in other words, a kind of a good reputation, a good name, and they're turning it into something bad. They're trying to turn that glory into something shameful, something bad. What are they trying to do? Now, you could possibly think of, did Absalom do anything like that? Can you think of something really horrible that Absalom did? Can you think of something? I mean, that's a possible cross-reference that you could work on. All right. Number 2, How long will you love vanity? How long will you love vanity? Now, if we look at this, let's just do this really quick. I'm going to move away from the commentaries here. I'm going to pull up the Blue Letter Bible app, which everyone should have, Blue Letter Bible app. Let's pull up the interlinear. All right. I went to verse 2 for some reason. Let's go to verse 2. I went to verse 3 for some reason. Let's go to verse 2. Here we go. All right. You sons of men, how long, my glory and shame, will you love vanity? Now, the word vanity here, let me go back here. Pull up the interlinear. There we go. Wow. Okay, this is that my Blue Letter Bible app is deciding not to act up. Yeah, right when you're live on the air, it decides to act up. How long will you love vanity? Here you go. The Greek word here for vanity is, or the Hebrew word is
Strong's H7385, reek.
It's reek. I can't roll my R's like that. So it's reek. All right. That's the Hebrew word. I said Greek. I apologize. It's reek. And it means basically vain, vanity, no purpose, empty, vain thing. A Strong's definition, emptiness, figuratively a worthless thing, in vain, empty, to no purpose. Its outline of biblical usage, emptiness, vanity, empty, idle, vain. So his complaint is that the sons of men, right? The sons of men, they're turning his glory into shame. He's turning his glory into shame, and he seems to link that, or at least his second complaint, is how long are you going to love vanity? How long are you going to love empty, meaningless things? You have no purpose? Now, is he connecting that with the fact that they're turning his glory into shame, that really it's vain, it's empty, it serves no purpose, and he's frustrated by that? Well, when you live in a world where people, listen, are first doing things to you, attacking you, and these people seem to have no purpose and meaning in life, that means they're going to engage in all kinds of who knows what activity because they don't have any greater purpose, that can make things difficult for you. And there's a third complaint here. They're turning his glory into shame. They love vanity, and they seek after leasing. Now, what is that? Well, let's look up, hang on. Let's look this up here. Let's go to interlinear. After leasing.
Strong's H7385.
Okay, don't want that one. Here we go. This is the one we want. All right, here we go. We want this one.
Strong's H3577.
Kazav. Now here in the Hebrew, this idea of leasing is, and it's used 31 times. It's translated lie, lying, deceitful, false, liar, lies. Falsehood, deceitful, false, leasing, liar, lie, lying. It's outline of biblical usage, a lie, untruth, falsehood, deceptive thing. I can look at I got a lexicon here, falsehood, lying. Anything that deceives, all right? And it could refer to, I could get into a greater detail of the Hebrew word, but I will not do that because, again, I don't want to do all the work for you. It's always hard trying to choose what to do here. So he's got 3 complaints against the sons of men. He has pleaded, he put a plea to God. He cried out to God. I'm going to call it a plea. He pled with God for God to hear him. His plea was for God to hear him, right? Secondly, he has a complaint. All right. His complaint is that the sons of men, 3 things about them. Number 1, they're turning his glory into shame. Number 2, they're seeking vanity, vain, empty, meaningless. They have no purpose. And number 3, they seek after lies. They seek after falsehood. They seek after that which is not true. And this is creating a situation for the psalmist that he doesn't like. In fact, he feels like that he's in distress and he needs God once again to enlarge the situation where he can be removed from it. All right. Now, verse 3. So there's number one, we have the plea, a plea for God to hear. Number two, a complaint against the sons of men. There are three parts of his complaining against the sons of men, that they're turning his glory into shame, they love vanity, and they love lies. They love lies. Now, what happens in verse 3? But know that the Lord hath set apart him that is godly for himself. The Lord will hear when I call unto him. Now, what do we do with verse 3? This is interesting. Verse 2 is the complaint about the sons of men. I don't think there's any question. But what is going on in verse 3? Is the psalmist speaking to himself? But no. Is he reminding himself of something? Here's what I need to know. He's put out a plea. He's pleaded with God to hear him. He's given his complaint about the sons of men. But then in verse 3, but no. Who is he telling to know? I think that's very interesting. I'm going to look up something really quick. I'm going to look up I'm just going to see how other people handled this. Okay. So it doesn't tell me anything. Okay, here we go. So finally a commentary. I was looking at all these commentaries like nobody's really dealing with this. It is generally supposed that David spoke here primarily of himself, so that he is speaking of himself here. All right. I guess he's speaking of himself. Is he speaking of himself or is he speaking to himself? If he's speaking of himself, all right, then okay, I could see possibly what's going on here. Okay, but who is he speaking to, though? That commentary. Okay, good. All right, now so here's a commentary who offers a little bit more help. But no, this is addressed to those whom in the previous verse he called the sons of men. That is his foes. Okay, so that makes sense. So he pleads to God. He gives a complaint to the sons of men. And then in verse 3, he speaks to his message to the sons of men. Now, how far does this message to the sons of men go? This is where it's going to get interesting. Does verse 4 continue that message to the sons of men? Well, let's break it down. Let's at least break down verse 3. Let's at least break down verse 3 as being a message to the sons of men. I think this makes the most sense. But no, it just doesn't make any sense. And it's just interesting what he does here. So here's his complaint of the sons of men are threefold. They are turning his glory into shame. All they do is love vanity, and they love falsehood and lies. That's what they love. That's what they say, or they seek after lies and falsehood. So then he says, okay, guys, that's you. Now listen, you need to know something. Know that the Lord hath set apart him that is godly for himself. Now, it seems to be David is speaking about himself. Hey, God has set me apart for himself. Now, this may be specifically related to God has set me apart for himself to sit on the throne, to be king. I think that's possible. Hey, you need to realize that you can do all the things about me. You can do all of that, but God has set me apart for himself. God has set me apart for himself, for his purpose, his glory, his honor. And no matter what you do, you can't do anything about that. Right? That's possible. But know that the Lord hath set apart him that is godly for himself, and the Lord will hear when I call unto him. Now it's interesting in verse 1. Hey, Lord, please, he's pleading with God. Hear me, Lord. Hear me. Hear my prayer. Have mercy. Hear my prayer. Right? So he doesn't. It's almost like in verse 1, he's not taking it for granted that God should hear his prayer, but he's pleading with God to hear his prayer. He gives the complaint about the sons of men, and then he gives a message to the sons of men, and the message seems to be two parts. Number one, God has set the godly apart for himself. I think he's referring to himself. God has set me apart for himself, for his purpose. You can't destroy that purpose. You can't stop it. And God's going to hear me. God's going to hear me. Now, what happens? So verse 1, we have the plea. Verse 2, we have the complaint. Verse 3, we have a message. Now, what do we do with verse 4? What do we do with verse 4? I'm going to look just briefly and see what any commentary does here. All right? Because I don't think they're going to tell us who he's referring to here. Okay. I see here. Okay, now this one. Okay, this one seems to imply that verse 4 is, he's still addressing. Yes, he's still addressing. It seems like all the commentaries agree with this, that he is still addressing the sons of men. So the message continues. So if we want to build an outline, I told you to do the outline. See, and I'm doing it for you. All right, so if we go with this outline, we have David's plea, David's complaint, and David's message to the sons of men. All right? And that message is verse 3, 2 parts to the message so far. Hey, God has set apart the godly for himself. And I think what he is saying there, he set me apart for himself. And I think we can show that. I mean, God chose David. He chose David, right? To be king. Can we agree with that? The people chose Saul. David chose, the people chose Saul. God chose David. I think we can agree with that. He's going to hear my prayer. And then he tells them to stand in awe. Stand in awe. Now that's an interesting phrase. What do you think stand in awe means here? Well, let's look up the phrase stand in awe. Let's go back here to verse 4. Pull up interlinear. Stand in awe is this. Stand in awe is this.
Strong's H7264. Ragaz. Ragaz.
Ragaz. Now, the Hebrew word here, ragaz, means it's used 41 times. It's translated tremble, rage, shake, trouble, quake, afraid. Strong's definition, to quiver with any violent emotion, especially anger or fear. Be afraid, stand in awe, fall out, fret, provoke, quake, rage, shake, tremble, trouble, be wroth. The outline of biblical usage, tremble, quake, rage, quiver, be agitated, be excited, be perturbed. All right? Be ticked off, be bothered, be upset, be mad. Now, why would he tell them to stand in awe, be upset, be angry, be bothered? Why would he tell them to do that? What do you think he's trying to do here? That's very interesting when you look at this, all right? In fact, let me go back here. I'm going to go all the way up to this one because I think this one's interesting, all right? Oh, wait, I'm going to even go further up. Okay, here we go. This commentary says literally tremble, whether with fear or anger, all right? So the idea, be angry, be fearful, all right? The other one says, tremble and be afraid, if not of me, at least of God, who hath engaged himself in my cause and will be an adversary to my adversaries. So it seems the idea, he's saying, okay, guys, all right, he's pleaded with God to hear, he's given his complaint, and he's got a message for them. And his message for them is, listen, God has set apart the godly for himself, and I think he's directing that at him. He's been chosen by God. He's the one to be king. The Lord's going to hear me, and you need to stand in awe. You need to tremble with fear. You can be upset. You can be mad because of what God has done for me. He chose me for himself. God did this. You can be upset about it. Go ahead, be upset, be mad, be angry, be fearful, tremble. You may need to tremble about this. There's a lot of different emotions that he could be telling them. I think maybe telling them to be fearful it may be captures the idea. You need to tremble. You need to fear because you're doing all of these things against me. You're trying to turn my glory into shame, but it is God who has chosen me for himself. I think that seems to be the idea there. I think that's the case, all right? So he tells them to stand in awe, all right? And then he tells them to sin not, all right? Now some will argue this is the idea in Ephesians 4:26 where it says, be angry and sin not. So is he telling them be angry but don't sin? Maybe. Whatever emotion, he's telling them do not sin here. Do not sin because, well, that's not going to benefit you or anybody else here. Do not sin. And there's so many other commentaries here I could look at. So stand in awe, sin not, and commune with your own heart upon your bed and be still. So it's almost like what he's doing here is this. All right. He pleads with God, verse 1. Verse 2, he's got a message directed at these people. Or no, he's got a complaint at these people. I'm sorry. Verse 2 is his complaint. Starting in verse 3, he has a message to these people. Number 1, hey, God, set apart the godly for himself. That's me, right? God has chosen me. And he's going to hear me when I call unto him. Stand in awe, tremble, fear, anger, whatever. But sin not, and commune with your own heart upon your bed and be still. You need to stop what you're doing and think about what you're doing. You need to commune. You need to think about what you're doing. You need to be still. Stop with all of your actions against me. Stop with all of the things you're doing. Stop following after lies. Stop going after vanity. Stop going after all of these things and think about what you are doing. Commune with yourself. Think about what you're doing. Be still and consider what you are doing. All right. Verse 5. Offer the sacrifices of righteousness and put your trust in the Lord. So, hey, think about what you're doing. And then verse 5, I think he continues. Verse 5. Offer the sacrifices of righteousness and put your trust in the Lord. Hey, what you need to do is offer your sacrifices of righteousness and you need to put your trust in God. You may not like me. You may not like what I'm doing, but you need to put your trust in God that God knows what he is doing and he has set apart the godly for himself. All right. Now, that gets us. So it seems that we have the plea. We have the plea. We have the complaint. And we have the message. The message goes from 3, 4, and 5. No question about it. 3, 4, and 5. There's no question about it. Now, here, so there's no question 3, 4, and 5 contains his message to these individuals. Now, let me ask you a question. When David composed this psalm, if it's of Davidic authorship, is this a situation where he was really intending for the people to hear this message? I mean, was he actually speaking to these people? Or is this, have you ever done this? Well, you're at home and you're contemplating a situation and you're struggling with it and you're upset about what this person's doing, And in a sense, in your mind, maybe even out loud, you start speaking about those people and to those people. You're like pacing back and forth in your house and going, man, I wish they would do this and I wish they would understand this and I wish they would get this and I don't know why they don't see this. I don't know why and you almost, in a sense, start talking to them either out loud. Come on, don't be embarrassed. I know you talk out loud to yourself sometimes, or at least maybe it's just me, or you are, you're just thinking in your mind, I wish they would get this. How come they can't see this? What do you think David is doing here? I don't think he's speaking directly to the people. So is he just, this is what he wished the people would understand? Think about this. Is it possible to interpret this as David, in a sense, praying that the people would understand these things? Do you think that's an acceptable way to look at it? That David, in a sense, is praying that, hey, I wish these people would see this. And this is what I wish they would do. I wish they would understand. I wish they would understand that God is going to hear my prayer. I wish that they would, stand in awe, be filled with fear, trembling, anger. And I wish they would not sin. And I wish that they would commune on their own, commune with their own heart and on their own bed and be still. I wish they would stop what they're doing, stop all of these crazy things that they're doing, go to bed and think about what they are doing. And then I wish they would wake up and offer sacrifices and put their trust in God. I wish they would do this. I wish they would do this. Do you think that this is a part of, he's speaking to the people, but he's speaking to the people while speaking to God? I'm just asking the question. And then verse 6. There be many that say, who shall show us any good? Now, does he turn his attention from those sons of men to a different group? Is that what he's doing? I'm going to stop here and I'm going to let you work on verse 6, 7, and 8. Verse 6, 7, and 8. All right. So I've given you somewhat of an outline. Finish the outline. I want you to finish the outline. And then I want you to try to come up with 2 or 3 strong lessons that you think you can get from Psalm chapter 4. What are some strong lessons you can do? Clearly, when you're facing these kind of situations, you need to turn to God. I just think that I have a better way of interpreting this as he's turning to God in prayer. It's almost in prayer. He's like, Lord, I wish these people would see. I wish these people would understand. Because it's weird. Like, I know it's a message to the people, but I just don't see that the message would have ever gotten to the people. He's writing the psalm. Are the people anywhere around? Are they ever going to hear the psalm? Was he hoping, hey, here's the psalm. Hey, this is this is to be played on the string instruments and worship. Was he hoping that people, in a sense, would come to worship and hear the song? Is this a message to all the people who were possibly going after his authority as king? Was this written after he had been king? I mean, there's lots of questions there of trying to figure this out, trying to put it in its historical context. I was thinking some other directions to go there, but I'm just going to stop. I want you to work on it. I want you to contemplate it, think about it, and then you can let me know what you discover. You can email me any thoughts you have on Psalm 4. Look, I've done part of the work. I haven't done all the work. Oh, there's so many. I mean, I've got books all over the place right here, right? I've got, and what's funny is the whole reason we ended up in Psalm 4. I don't know if you can hear it. Is this a Bible study guide that I reference? And remember what I always do whenever I see something in one of the Bible study guides, I don't continue to pursue it. I just stop and go, okay, Psalm 4, and I don't read what they have to say. I just start doing my own study. Let me see if I can find where the entry is here, because I want you to read. I want you to see I'll read it to you. I want you to see the title they give for Psalm 4 here. Let me see if I can find it. Hopefully I can find it. I thought I had it marked. Let me see here. Psalm 4, where was it? Psalm 4. They viewed it as like instructions. I am missing it. You see here. Oh, here it is. Psalm 4. This is what they did with the title. Being godly in an ungodly world. Many passages of Scripture described how to live a godly life, and today's text is one such example. So they're saying that this is telling us how to be godly in an ungodly world. Okay, I don't know if there's principles here, definitely. There's principles. It's just again, it's a psalm. And the Psalms are written, they're Hebrew poetry. This is a song to be sung. So there are some principles here. We just got to make sure we understand what this is. It's not a doctrinal statement. It's a song. He's expressing emotion. So he pleads to God, verse 1. He pleads to God. He pleads to God to hear him. He's pleading for this past mercy that's happened in the past to be present again in the present. He has a complaint against the sons of men. He then has a message for the sons of men in verse 3, verse 4, and verse 5. Then verse 6, I think he's got a complaint against someone else or some other people. And then you can have what happens in verse 7 and verse 8. So I think that there is some spiritual direction there about, hey, when it's the end of the night and you're so stressed out, you don't know what to do. I think there are some lessons there to be learned. Cry out to God and turn to God. But I think there's some other interesting things going on there as well. But I'll stop right there. Oh, I hate stopping. But we're at 50 minutes, so I'll stop. Enjoy. Hang on. Let me grab this other book. 1 second. All right. Because I think this book has an outline. Yeah. Okay. Look at how they handled this. This commentary handles it this way. Verses 1 through 3, he asked. That's David. He asked. And verse 1 through 3. So they have 1 through 3, him asking for something. 4 through 5, he believed something. And verses 6 through 8, he received something. He asked, he believed, he received. I don't think that outline works with the text. I don't. Another commentary, let me see if I can find it here. Another commentary, they did it this way. All right, hang on, let me close this, open it back up. This is on my Olive Tree Bible app. They did it this way. This was their outline of Psalm 4, 1 through 8. Confidence, the Lord hears the holy, verses 1 through 3. So they grouped verses 1 through 3 together. I don't think that works. Verse 4 through 5. So the first one was confidence. The Lord hears the holy. Number 2, calling. The godly trust. The godly trust the Lord. Verses 4 through 5. And then confession. Verses 6 through 8. Safe in the Lord alone. Again, I don't think any of those outlines are dealing with the actual text. And the reason I point this out, and the reason we do these Bible study exercises is ultimately I'm trying to equip you so that you will not be tossed to and fro with every wind of doctrine. Here's the reason why, whether you like to accept this or not. Pastors, when they get ready to preach a sermon, let's say they're working through the book of Psalms, guess what they do? They will go to, many cases, these commentaries and take the outline from those commentaries. Now, once you take an outline that comes from someone else, you then force your interpretation of the text to fit that outline. That's problematic. You got to throw out everyone else's outline and try to establish your own outline and make sure your outline is an observation, not an interpretation, and then you work through the text. But if you go with someone else's outline, you will be forced to make the interpretation fit that outline. What we just did with Psalm 4, it doesn't fit any of those. What we just did doesn't fit. Go back to Psalm chapter 4. I'll go back to Psalm chapter 4. Give me 1 second here, because I just want you to see. Psalm chapter 4, verse 1. Yes, verse 1 is he's pleading to God to hear him. There's no question about it. But in verse 2, it's a complaint about the sons of men. How does that fit that in verse 2, they say that the Lord, that's confidence? I don't get how that fits. This commentary, let me go back to this one. By grouping verse 2 there, he asked, okay? He asked, they got verses 1 through 3 as him asking. This other one says confidence, the Lord hears the holy, verses 1 through 3. Well, that both of those commentaries destroy the actual text. Verse 1, he's crying to God, no question about it. Verse 2, he's complaining. Now, you could say that complaint is to God about the sons of men. Maybe it is. In some ways, oh, you sons of men, how long will you turn my glory? In verse 2, he seems to be talking about the sons of men. Right? You could put this, verse 1 is to God, and verse 2, 3, 4, and 5 are all to the sons of men. But I like to break it down. We have the plea, we have the complaint, because clearly verse 2 is a complaint. He's complaining about the sons of men, about their issues. Now, it may be directed towards them. It may not even be directed in prayer, or maybe it was directed in prayer. Again, a lot of different ways of understanding this. And then clearly verse 3, but no, is a major transition. He's not saying, I want you to know something. Now he's got a message to them. Now, is this a situation where David in prayer to God is just speaking about all of this? Hey, Lord, I need you to hear me, and here's what I need you. I need you to hear me about these sons of men, and they're doing all of these things, and he's speaking to God, but he's speaking to God and about these individuals. And here's what I wish they would know. Here's what I wish they would understand. That's a possibility, and we've already talked about that, because it just seems weird that he's like, hey, he's praying to God, but he's talking to these people. I think sometimes when I talk to God, I may talk about all kinds of different situations. So there you have it. I just don't think none of the commentaries, their outlines actually are dealing with the text. That's why you have to learn to deal with the text yourself. So you've got verse 6 through 8 to figure out. All right. I wait to say, look, the Bible study exercises. I can do my part, but the circle is not complete until you do your part. And then we can expand that circle into a completely different circle, because when you give me that feedback, that can spark a whole different conversation. You may have a completely different approach to Psalm 4. Let me know what it is, and I'll be very happy to tell you that you're wrong. Okay, I'm joking. All right, I look forward to seeing what you find. Everyone have a great day. I'm going to get some food. God bless.